think we'll go ahead and begin. And once again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're happy to have you as part of this learning community. Just for the next hour, we'll be together. My name is Colleen Whalen. I'm one of the literacy consultants at RISA. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Jason Siko, who is one of our instructional technology consultants at RISA. And he'll be doing a lot of the magic behind the scenes type things today. If you happen to have any questions, you can certainly place those in the chat and he'll make sure that I'm aware of what's in there. If I could answer anything, I'm happy to do that. We'll also be placing a few links in the chat as we get to the end of our session today, just for additional resources and opportunities for you today. We just want to say thanks for taking the time this afternoon to log in. I'm just going to share some tips and techniques that I have read about and have found success with over the years that have really helped me focus on the important things in my life, inside and outside of the classroom. I'm not certified as a self-care specialist. The ideas shared today do not come from a medical or mental health profession viewpoint. I'm not advocating for a particular religion or spiritual stance. I'm simply an educator who strives to have a balance and a purpose in my life. So I just wanted to make sure that that was known, and just here to kind of help support all of us as we move into this next school year. So if we think about the title of our session today, it really talks about practicing self-care. And that word has really been around, been used and focused on a lot lately in our day and age. And with the pandemic, right, in the midst of everything, we've been hearing a lot about taking care of yourself. I thought it might be a nice idea just to kind of think about a definition of self-care so that we kind of have a common understanding of what that is. And so when we think of self-care today, we mean we're taking care of ourselves so that we can be healthy, right? So that we can be well, so that we can do our job, so that we can help and care for others who may need that, and so that we can do all the things that we need to do and we want to accomplish within a day. So those kind of things encompass what we mean when we say self-care. I'd like to show you just a really quick video. It's about 1.5 minutes. And it kind of explains and goes in depth a little bit more about what we mean when we talk about health, self-care. So I'm going to go ahead and share that video with you. How was that, Jason?
Good.
In the book, you write that self-care is, the term self-care, it's overused, misused, misunderstood. Like, can you sort of tell us, what do you think self-care really is? What does it mean?
You know, when I wrote my book, The Self-Care Solution, what I said in that book was that in the 1980s and 90s, the term was self-help, right? And that kind of was all the rage and really popular because it was just put two things together that could relate to, so many people could relate to. And as I see it, that concept of self-help implies by definition that there's a problem with you, and therefore you need to help yourself fix the problem. I think self-care is more like, you will meet you where you are, and let's just take care. How do you care for yourself in the best way possible? So that means caring for your emotional and mental well-being, but also your physical well-being.
Okay. Well, so let's see if we can get you back to our PowerPoint here so we can see that. So interesting to think about the difference between self-care and self-help. All right. Having trouble with my escape here. I need to shrink my screen here, and there we go. All right. So as we continue on with our learning this afternoon, just a couple of things to bring forth. The hope is that today we have some time to simply slow down, right, for a moment or two and really think about some simple and practical techniques that might help you as you enter into this new school year, thinking about creating a sense of focus, a sense of simplicity, a sense of tranquility inside your classroom, maybe even inside the culture of your school, and then certainly within your life as well. So those are kind of the hopes that we're going with as we continue with our learning today. And you'll kind of see as we follow our journey today, we'll kind of start a little bit with what do we mean by the Zen teacher and what do we mean by the word Zen? How might we enter into this journey and how will we embrace the journey? And then we will kind of dig into some techniques to help us with that, including some meditation and mindfulness tips and techniques you might be able to focus in on as you enter into your new school year. And so we think about this question, what do we mean by Zen? Well, Zen is when you really notice the world just the way it is, right? You're free of any judgment. You're not placing any judgment on anything. And you are detached from outcomes, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about because as teachers or educators, we are always focused on what outcomes we are striving for when we're teaching our students. So in that moment of Zen, you're totally present, you're fully present, and you are experiencing life in a way that the rest of the world typically ignores. Okay? When we think about Zen, we know that we are tuned in to the actuality of the present moment, what's really happening at that moment, right as it happens right now. So we think about the word flow sometimes when we put yen, the meaning of Zen and flow together. And we think about flow being a state in which you're totally engaged by an experience that everything else just kind of melts away and you lose track of time. It's kind of what athletes and artists describe when they're kind of in the moment, in their zone. And maybe some of you have seen that or paid attention to that as the Olympics have been viewed widely this time of the year. So we're going to just take a moment to kind of get ourselves into a good thinking portion. And my hope is that any of the activities that we try, some things that we experience together, that you might take those ideas and do them at different times throughout your day, whether you're in your classroom or not. They're just some tips that may help you think about being in the moment, having that Zen moment. And so if we all would just take a moment to feel the natural rhythm of your breath. I'm actually feeling the rhythm of my breath being a little different right now because I'm presenting. I'm using a lot of air and oxygen as I talk to you today. So we're just going to breathe in and we're going to breathe out, and you're going to notice your surroundings. Notice what you're sitting on. Notice what your hands may be placed upon. Notice the sounds that are near you. Notice what is distracting you. Try not to judge, just experience where you're at right now, and you sense what you sense. Okay? So one book that I really wanted to show you today is a book called The Zen Teacher. I bought it a few years back and really hadn't dug into it. Why? Maybe because I wasn't feeling very Zen-like. I was feeling a little overwhelmed, thinking that I really wanted to have this balance and strive for purpose and meaning in my education life. And I wasn't finding the time to nestle into this book. And then when the pandemic hit and really flipped everyone's thinking about how we were going to touch students' lives and do the best we can to help support them, is when it really started to hit me about developing this focus and the simplicity in my life. Sometimes I had the feeling that the technology was causing me more stress than I had when I was in the classroom or in schools working with teachers. And so I pulled out the book, The Zen Teacher, and ultimately thought it would be a great idea for a topic for a webinar this summer. So when we talk about the Zen practice, I lean into this book that was authored by the Zen teacher, who is Dan Tricario. And he actually has his own website and blog, which you can certainly follow, and I will share that later on. But he describes Zen practice as an activity that helps you really hone into focus. It improves your ability to stay rooted in the present. And it also causes you to be fully aware of what is happening directly before you. So we think about, what does Zen mean? And then when we add the word practice to it, it really is an activity that really helps you with that focus and staying rooted in the present. So as we think about that, I'm going to invite you now to do a protocol that we often invite teachers and students to do. And again, simply any protocol I may share with you today, try it out in your own space or setting, but also consider how you might adjust it for any students that you come in contact with. So this protocol is a Think Inc. And what we're going to do is we're going to think about what you love. Think about, where do you feel most in tune with the world, the universe, or yourself? What might you hear and what might you see? What would you feel and smell? What would you taste? And this is just a time to describe your own Zen practice. So you're completely in the moment. It's the right here and the right now. You're not causing stress or worry upon yourself. You're not thinking or placing judgment and outcomes on your mind. It's just a time when you're kind of in that Zen moment, right? And everything is one with the world. So you're going to think that through, and then we're going to process that with writing. So you're going to grab your pencil and your paper, and I'm going to just give you a little bit of time. Actually, I have a 6-minute timer on here that I'm going to play. I hope you enjoy the music. And we'll just give you some time to really consider, where are you with your Zen practice? Now, I do want to caution you, this does not have to be a school activity that causes you a Zen moment. You may have a very difficult time thinking of one right now. Hopefully by the end of our session, you'll be able to come up with one. So this is really probably outside of your work life. It's probably a time when you're really feeling the most in tune with yourself and the world next to you. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the music, and I hope it gave you some time to really stop and think about those moments that really mean something to you, really a time for you to be in tune with who you are. And it's important to allow time for this kind of processing. It's not only for adults, but children as well, when you consider how reflective just the practice of writing can be. So in this current reality we live in, we're constantly being asked to just do and do. And sometimes we just need to just be. And playing music and calming ourselves down and just doing some writing actually allows us to just be. And we must take that time to be still. In addition, that process of writing can be very therapeutic and freeing. And it can allow you to just give yourself and your students time to find a Zen moment, right? So thinking about that, how might you find time within your day to give yourself opportunity to find a Zen moment? And not just yourself, but your students as well. When might this happen? And why would you believe that that's an important practice as you're teaching throughout the day? So as we consider thinking through Zen practice, we really would like to focus on this notion of teaching can be a Zen practice too. And you might be wondering, well, how is that possible? How can I take something so calm and not distracting and insert that into a school day? And so it must first originate from our passions. It has to come from within, and we have to feel it. It has to be involving being open, right? And not being stuck to something so rigid and structured. Also anticipating results. And again, sometimes that feels like it's a conflict with the work of a teacher, right? We're always asked to be doing more and sticking to a structure and a routine. And I'm really finding out what the outcomes are. So the Zen practice is finding moments within your day where you can step away from that. It also involves showing compassion and gratitude to those people that you encounter throughout the day. So not necessarily always your students, but maybe it's your colleagues that you teach next door with. Or maybe it's someone that you touch base with in the office, perhaps. Possibly a parent that you're connected to. So thinking about all of the people that you encounter throughout the day as well. So within your school day, where and when can you focus on your passions? Where can you explore your obsessions? And where can you be in the moment and experience this thing that we call flow? Remember, when you're pursuing a Zen practice, there's no goal. And there's not really a finish line. Like, it's the doing part, it's the journey. It's those rituals and routines and techniques that make us feel rewarded. Actually, the performance or the process of it is actually your prize. So as we enter into the journey of finding Zen, we have a beginner's mind, right? We're thinking with a beginner's mind, and some things that can get us started involves a couple of different things. So it involves approaching a situation with an open mind, really a vulnerable heart, not one that's judging, and really having a willingness to learn. It's inviting curiosity, exploration, and discovery. Those are really big terms that we can throw out, but they really are very deep indeed. It's actually letting go of a particular outcome. And so in order to do this and approaching our teaching situations or our teaching scenarios, you can influence the way you design your lessons, the way you implement your lessons, freeing up to have an open mind, freeing up to letting go of a particular outcome, letting the students really explore, be curious, and discover. It can allow you the freedom to admit that you are not the gatekeeper of all the knowledge and information. Your teaching and your learning create an environment that is safe and respectful. So entering into this journey also, we think about it happening every day, maybe not just once a week or once a month, but where can I find a moment every single day? And we talk about this term waking up, which actually means slowing down. It means engaging in fewer obligations. It means being present and fully experience the surroundings near you. It really means just noticing and observing, watching, caring, just breathing and enjoying. By waking up in the classroom, you'll be aware of the students who are struggling, the students who are striving, academically or personally. You'll have time to listen and problem solve together. You'll discover new jewels in your lessons, maybe even lessons that you've given multiple times. You'll have a chance to notice changes that need to be made. You're opening up your mind and you're waking up to these possibilities. You'll be paying attention. You will see the light turn on in a kid's mind, and you'll see the things you might not have noticed before just by waking up. So as we enter the journey, we try to remind ourselves to have that beginning mind and to really wake up. And once we begin this journey, we start embracing it then. We start noticing things throughout our day where we can fully experience some of these things. And so when we talk about embracing the journey, we want time set aside so that you can experience some stillness in your life, maybe some silence, and really tune into your intuition. It's important to listen to our intuition because based on the knowledge you've learned and the experiences that you've had over the years, intuition actually forms your judgment and your ability to make fast decisions. So it's also important to approach situations free of judgment. It's really easy to say, difficult to do. Presume positive intentions. Approaching the world and embarking your day with compassion and kindness actually can ignite a sense of happiness and well-being within you. And when our mind is focused on what we're grateful for, it's nearly impossible to feel unhappy. And I know you've probably heard of many people that have participated in a great gratitude journal where they write each and every day one small thing that they may be grateful for. So allowing this compassion and kindness in your life, allowing this acceptance to really stand back and notice your emotions and let them be. And try to watch them pass beyond you. So I found this quote that I thought was a nice way to really think about this notion of self-compassion. And we talk about being compassionate, right? And we often think about working with others and being compassionate. But first, we must really practice self-compassion. And I think it's really important for us to consider ourselves, right? So this quote says, I was looking for someone to inspire me, motivate me, support me, and keep me focused. Someone who would love me, cherish me, and make me happy. And I realized that all along, I was looking for myself. So what a lovely way to consider self-compassion. It's really an undervalued and an under-practiced art. And it includes everything from forgiving yourselves for maybe a perceived or an actual mistake, to practicing positive self-talk, such as like affirmations or praises or pleasant thoughts and well wishes for yourself. So just a nice little way to consider compassion, really moving into self-compassion first, taking care of yourself. So as we continue to embrace the journey and consider to really get ourselves in tune with our world around us, what makes us most happy, we need to be thinking about what we can identify and express what we're grateful for, and do it often. And also practice this art of acceptance of ourselves, right? Acceptance of others, and then also acceptance of events. And when you put that hat of teacher or educator on, we can certainly connect with each one of those acceptance pieces, ourselves, others, and events. And so when our minds are focused on what we're grateful for, once again, it's nearly impossible to feel unhappy. Acceptance allows you to stand back and notice your emotions and let them be and watch them pass. So consider what you have control over and what you do not. And so we're going to just take a moment to do an activity. And we have a timer again for 1 minute. And then in this first minute, I'd like to invite you to jot down a few scenarios in which something unexpected or unwanted happened. And as you consider those scenarios, just jot them down. It can be in a bullet form, something very quick. It can be from your everyday life. It can be from your personal life. It can be part of your professional life. But some scenarios where you would have to practice an acceptance plan. So you're considering some things that maybe didn't go the way you thought that they would. They were unexpected or unwanted. And we'll just take a quick minute to go ahead and jot those down. Okay, so 1 minute does go pretty quick. And that's a good thing to keep in mind too, as you're inviting students to write. This next minute, what we'd like to do is actually pick one of those scenarios. I was able to list 2 during that time. Go ahead and pick one that's not in sync with your expectations and find a quiet place. We can just stay right here. But as you do this outside of our webinar, you would find a quiet place and just be mindful of your breath and then say, this does not meet my expectations. How can I find a way to accept what's happening and see the gifts this situation offers? What can I learn from this circumstance that will take me where I wish to go? So there's some questions there. You can look at them on the screen. We can go ahead and play the timer once again. Choose one of those scenarios and think that through. All right. Once again, important to just spend some quiet time thinking. Sometimes music helps. Sometimes it makes us more mindful of our breath. But this is one strategy you may choose to use as a way of expressing what it is that may be causing you any stress, maybe something that's caused you to think in a different way because of your expectations. And ultimately, there's a way that we can accept that and look into it in a different light. So we're switching our focus here and considering the notion of meditation. Many of you have heard of that practice, meditation, and simply it's the practice of really attempting to focus your attention on one thing at a time. So you hear Zen practice being in the moment, finding when you're one with nature and the world and yourself. And really, meditation allows us, it's an activity that helps us to get to that space. And it's an opportunity for us to specifically focus on one thing at a time. And I wanted to share this quote with you by Peter Matheson. He's the author of The Snow Leopard. He's actually a field biologist, and he did some exploring in the Himalayas. And what he said is the purpose of meditation practice is not enlightenment. It's to pay attention, even at unextraordinary times, to be present. Nothing but the present. To bear in this mindfulness of now into each event of ordinary life. So some words to really process and think through. Unextraordinary times happening in our ordinary life. So our author of the book, The Zen Teacher, in his book, oftentimes he'll end a chapter with a Zen Teacher assignment. And I thought it might be fun to include a few of them in our time together. One of the assignments, and we're going to just practice this for a moment, and I'm going to invite you to just sit comfortably where you're at and try to really breathe naturally as I'm talking to you. I'm going to go ahead and talk this through, and I want you to begin to focus on the nature of your breath. Notice the rhythm and impulse of your breathing. Only breathe when you feel the impulse. You may have your eyes open, closed, whatever best allows you to focus on your breathing. And as thoughts come, acknowledge them and let them flow right out of the other side of your mind and return your focus to your breath impulse. Thoughts are not the enemy, but more like shooting stars. They'll come and go, arcing their way across the universe of your mind. And that's fine. Just notice them without judgment or attachment. Just taking a few moments within your day, whether it's at home or at school. It's something that can isolate you from what's going on at that moment. It can put you in a different state of mind and actually refresh you, rejuvenate you for what's to come later. Not just you, but your students as well. How might you have a Zen teacher assignment transfer into a Zen student? Something to consider. A couple of activities that I wanted to share with you when we think about meditation are these two here. You can see gazing meditation is one option and a walking meditation is another. And really, they have very similar things that you would do in the moment of this meditation. But one is just simply being still and really having one specific focal point, where a walking meditation can happen throughout your day. Our author, Dan, actually talks about having walking meditation in the hallway of a school building. And I chuckled at that, thinking, I don't know if I could actually get my brain settled on that. But he also offers suggestions, like maybe walking from the parking lot, from your car into the school building. Or maybe you have an opportunity during planning time to be outside. Take a quick, brisk walk. Maybe it's at lunchtime. Maybe you've decided to set aside twice a week that you'll try to do one form of meditation. It's really up to you and what you think you can make sure will help support you in your self-care. And just to mention, research shows that nature breaks really can improve your performance, particularly when you're under stress. Think about a time when you might be able to invite nature into your space. Even in the dead of winter, nature can allow us to just de-stress. And how might you be able to insert that into your life? Maybe your personal life, but also thinking about your professional life. A few other activities that I wanted to share with you that you could simply take back with you are some breathing techniques. And really, breathing techniques are just an opportunity to take things slow and have deep breaths. And we know breathing techniques really heighten performance and concentration. And they also can, of course, reduce our stress. And really, when you think about different patterns of breathing techniques, it can also help reduce anxiety or help people with sleep issues. So the first one I wanted to share with you is called a box 4. And it's also called the 4 square breathing. But it really involves like exhaling your breath on a count of 4. So you would breathe 4 and exhale on 4. You'd hold your lungs empty for a count of 4. And then you inhale at the very same pace for a count of 4. And then you are holding the air in your lungs before you exhale again. And when I started trying this breathing technique, I really had to put a box visual in my head, thinking about 4 breathing out, 4 holding in, 4 breathing in, 4 holding. And the second breathing technique I wanted to share with you is called the 4-7-8. And this is a relaxing breath. And that involves breathing in for 4 seconds, holding that breath for 7 seconds, and then exhaling for 8. And so what I'd like to do is to just give you a few moments of time to practice those breathing techniques. And I feel that if I don't give you the time now, you may never do this and you never may think of it again. But if you actually perform in the activity, it may hold a little bit tighter within your next steps of trying. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a few moments to your own breathing techniques. You can try both of those if you'd like, or one or the other, and we'll come back in just a few moments. going to invite you to come back to our space. I know sometimes when you're practicing those breathing techniques, it takes you away and it's difficult to come back to a space here. So as you were breathing and you were in those practicing moments, what helped you stay focused? Maybe what caused distractions for you? How were you able to get your mind free from those distractions? And how did you feel in the moment? Those are some things that you can help process through as you're practicing those breathing techniques. We're switching gears to something called mindfulness. And of course, we hear this term again and again in many walks of our lives. But mindfulness is the conscious knowledge that this is this moment in particular is all that you have, and you're not judging it one way or the other. It's not good or it's not bad. And it's also requiring you to be in the moment and use all of your senses. Be mindful of the intentions that you have and be aware. And so another Zen teacher assignment you might consider as the school year begins is to think about being totally present in the lesson that you teach. Now, what will it look like? What kind of approach would you do differently? Would you approach that material in a different light? Maybe it's a lesson you've taught before. How might you approach the students in a different way? What about yourself? How will you enter into that lesson? How will this mindful approach affect that overall climate that is in your classroom? So it's something you can consider and you can practice once a week. Choose one lesson that you really want to walk into with an open mind, being totally present, and see how things unfold. See if there is more buy-in, more motivation, more engagement with your students because you've left the other things at the door. To go along with mindfulness is also something called present moment awareness. They're very, very similar. It's a form of mindfulness. And it allows teachers to really step outside of that chaos. You know, it's those everyday, those every week meetings that we have to go to, and it's new curriculum that's being shared with this, or maybe it's just the everyday noise of being part of a school building. It actually allows us to step away from that and navigate through these kinds of moments that just will naturally happen because of our experiences in our job. And it helps us to focus on that true purpose or the true meaning of why we are in our teaching role. And some things that you might be able to do to practice a present moment awareness are to just try some things before you leave for school. So it might be during your shower. It might be while you're eating breakfast or actually driving to work. These are some times when you can actually just step outside from all of this. How might these everyday mindful activities help you? How might it help you relax? How might it help you feel better? And how might it help you begin your day in a better place? Another thing that I wanted to mention before we head out today is something called rituals. And rituals really create a balance and help us focus our attention, right, on the moment. Preferably that it's unplanned or unstructured, right? And rituals help us become more productive and efficient. So not necessarily at all scheduled out to a T, but just knowing that this is happening throughout our day. And so to create time for classroom rituals, you could have a meditation or a breathing moment. Those activities, there are apps available. I shared a few with you on the screen. One is called Headspace, and there is a small fee for that one. And another one is called Calm. You can offer some opportunities for just some silent reading or writing during the school day. How is that allowing your children to process things that are happening throughout the day? Maybe it's processing where they are in their day and not necessarily the content that's being covered. And then once again, the calming music. Many of you probably play different kinds of music to set different tones. And you notice that I used the timer. I just got to YouTube and said, I need a 5-minute call me music, a timer. And you can simply insert that into your everyday use. And then lastly, thinking about the space, right? When we think about educators, we know that we have a certain area within our school that really is dedicated to the learning that happens. And by giving yourself permission to like free up some of that physical and mental space, that helps us navigate a little bit easier on our journey. And so some questions to consider are, might I clear off one shelf today or one surface area in my learning space? Could I donate a piece of furniture to the teacher down the hall? Could I free up some more space? Maybe on the walls. How could I make it less busy in my classroom? And not just the physical space, but then thinking about your mental space. Is there something that I can eliminate from a commitment that I've made? How can I free up more time? Could I tighten up a teaching goal that I have so that it narrows my focus and doesn't cause me more stress? So thinking about space is a really important part of being mindful. As I mentioned to you before, this is Dan. He is the author of the Zen Teacher, and this is actually his website, thezenteacher.com. And he's, like I said, he's got a blog, he's got podcasts, he'll even come and do some webinars. He looks like quite a lovely guy. And again, his book is a very easy read. So I certainly wanted to pay tribute to his work. I also have several links that Jason is going to place into the chat. And these are just some opportunities for really building your awareness and your thinking around this idea of self-care. There's some wonderful summer activities that have actually already began, but you can actually register for them as they continue through the month of August. There's teacher wellness training. I inserted a little information about just some personal reading that the big book of less was something that I engaged in myself in this summer. And actually a lot of the ideas that were offered in this book really helped me as I was preparing for today's session. In addition, I would be remiss not to share this calendar, which is actually our path forward as we continue this work in our summer blitz. There are a lot of offerings that we have each and every day of the month of August. And of course, today was the Zen Teacher practicing self-care, but there are numerous other opportunities for learning. And we want to make sure that you have that link available to you to register for any more of these Blitz sessions. And we're happy that you were able to join us today. And just to leave you lastly here, what I'd like to share with you is this quote, again, from Dan Tricario. And what he says is great teachers often push themselves too far. They tend to overdo it, they ignore their body's signals, and they overextend themselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. They forget this tiny thing called balance, and the Zen teacher pays attention to his or her language and learns the language of its messages. Value yourself enough to listen to your mind, body, and spirit. And so as you consider saying goodbye for the afternoon, think about what small shifts you might consider to really strengthen the self-care of yourself. Thanks for joining us today. We're happy that you were able to pop on. Have a wonderful evening.